Hello, I'm Susan Woods, and today I'm going to share a little bit more information regarding Black Lives Matter. And this time I'm talking about the mutiny. There is a mutiny going on right now within the Black Lives Matter structure. People are leaving the organizations, chapters are leaving the leadership structure, they are defecting. So I want to just share with you the reasons behind this mutiny that's going on right now. First, let's define a mutiny. A mutiny is a revolt among a group of people to oppose, change, or overthrow an organization to which they were previously loyal. Black Lives Matter chapters are revolting against the centralized Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation. They are leaving the structure because they are realizing that they have been bamboozled and fooled. And we're going to talk about what that means. And the source of this definition is from Wikipedia. Okay, so let's get into it. The Black Lives Matter leaders, I'm talking about at the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation, which is supposed to be at the top of the hierarchy with all of the chapters reporting into it. So the Black Lives Matter leaders at the Global Network Foundation made 3 changes to the organizational structure without communicating with chapter leaders. You see, the chapter leaders were under the impression that they were valued. They thought that their input mattered to the leadership structure or the leadership person, because it's only one person that's in leadership. But they've learned a valuable lesson in that they were mistaken. They're not valued at all. And they are the people, the chapter leaders, the chapter volunteers, they are the ones who were on the front lines during the protests last summer, marching and bringing worldwide attention to Black Lives Matter, which then created the so-called movement, which generated millions, and some people say billions of dollars to Black Lives Matter, the Global Network Foundation. So with all of the success, if you will, of the protests generating revenues into the pockets of the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation, then the chapters thought, quite naturally, they would receive some money. And they have learned a painful lesson that I'm going to share with you. Now, I have the word leaders in white because I want to point this out. The Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation does not have an official leadership structure, because if it claims to be a 501c3 nonprofit organization, then it is supposed to be governed by a board of directors. There is no board of directors. The leader is Patrice Cullors, who appointed herself just last year as the executive director. She came in and swooped in and made all of these changes herself because no one was there to hold her accountable for these changes. So she can do whatever she wants because she feels like, since she is one of the 3 founding members, she has the right to make whatever changes she wants as if it is her organization. Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation does not have an earned 501c3 status from the IRS. Therefore, they operate under the arm of the Tides Foundation. The Tides Foundation serves as fiscal sponsor for the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation, which means they are responsible for managing all of the revenues that goes into the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation's pocket. And they, the Tides Network, are supposed to provide transparent financial accountability so that the public can trace where the money goes. And that is simply not happening. So there are no leaders, there are no effective leaders at the head of the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation. I have the word structure in white. The reason I have the word structure in white is because there is no structure. I've been saying this ever since last June when I started investigating the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation, the so-called movement, and the chapters. I think I have reported on maybe 20 to 25 chapters. I'm not sure. There is no structure, and that was intentional. Early on the blacklivesmatter.com website, the leadership, so-called leadership, boasted about not having a structure. They wanted everyone to have free will to do whatever they wanted to do within their own chapters. They didn't have to, the chapters didn't have to report to anybody. Everybody just do whatever you want, in the name of advancing Black people. So there was no structure. If you're trying to understand what's going on now, you have to pretend that there is a structure. So I'm pretending that the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation is at the head of a hierarchy, and then the chapters report into it. If it was formalized, that's more than likely how it would look. But there is no structure. It's just chaotic mess. It's a chaotic mess that people have invested money in, thinking the money is going to the community, and it's not. So this is from politico.com. So let's go even deeper. There are 10 Black Lives Matter chapters that made a statement called blmchapterstatement.com. And it says, statement from the front lines of BLM. It is time for accountability. When I read that, I almost chuckle every time, no matter how many times I read it, I almost chuckle because it's so stupid. It's time now for accountability. Black Lives Matter has been in existence since 2013 when they exploited the death of Trayvon Martin, the three founders, and they coined the phrase Black Lives Matter. And then they put the hashtag Black Lives Matter. And then it went, wow, this is according to one of the three founders. She just so innocently says, I didn't even know what a hashtag was. This is what she's saying on national TV. I didn't know what a hashtag was. And then Patrice told me what a hashtag was. And then we went with it. And it just blew up from there. So since 2013 until 2021, nobody thought to say it's important to have accountability. So that's why I chuckle when I read this. It's like, wow, where have you been? Where have you been? So now I'm going to pause sharing because I want to go briefly to this website that they've created for their blmchapterstatement.com so that you can just see a little bit about what they're talking about. They're all upset now because they've been bamboozled. So let me go to that. Thank you for your patience as I navigate to the screen. I think I'm showing it now. Yeah. Sorry about that. Okay. So here is the statement from the front lines of BLM. It's time for accountability. Okay. So here's what they're saying. Now, again, it's 10 chapters. 10 chapters made this statement. Okay. Let me increase the size just a little tad. Okay. So here are 10 chapters. Okay. It was recently declared that Patrice Cullors was appointed the executive director to the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation. Since then, 2 new Black Lives Matter formations have been announced to the public: a Black Lives Matter Political Action Committee and a Black Lives Matter Grassroots. Black Lives Matter Grassroots was allegedly, listen to the language now, this is from 10 chapters that was formerly under the umbrella. Black Lives Matter Grassroots was allegedly created to support the organizational needs of chapters separate from the financial functions of BLMGN. We, the undersigned chapters, believe that all of these events occurred without democracy and assert that it was without the knowledge of the majority of Black Lives Matter chapters across the country and world. No joke. That's what happens when you give one person all of the power. We became chapters of Black Lives Matter as radical Black organizers, embracing a collective vision for Black people, engaging in the protracted struggle for our lives against police terrorism, with a willingness to do hard work that would put us at risk. We expected that the central organizational entity, most recently referred to as the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation, will support us chapters in our efforts to build communally. Since the establishment of BLMGN, our chapters have consistently raised concerns about financial transparency, decision making, and accountability. Despite years of effort, no acceptable internal process of accountability has ever been produced by BLMGN, and these recent events have undermined the efforts of chapters seeking to democratize its processes and resources. That's a lot. That's a lot. This statement is coming from 10 Black Lives Matter entities. And it said, pretty much, they've been cheated. They've put the work in. They've drawn attention of millions of people to the cause. Across the world, you had people marching across the world on behalf of Black people, which would never, ever, ever happen again. People gave money. You had big celebrities lending their support. You had major corporations giving money, destroying money. The conscience was killing them. They wanted to do something. They wanted to make a statement. So they said, let's support Black Lives Matter. You have all people of all races just march with Black Lives Matter signs. When all of this was going on in the background, I've been talking about this issue since June 2020. And because I'm Black and I spoke out about it, I was called every name in the book. And I expected it because I know how we do in the Black community. If we ever venture out to have 1 ounce of intelligence to speak up against something that we see is wrong, committed by Black people against Black people, all hell breaks loose. You suddenly become the enemy. You become the sellout of your own race because you're telling the truth about what someone is doing, Black, against the Black community. I spoke out. I said, this is not right. I've been in the nonprofit sector since 2003. I know all about transparency and accountability and what it looks like. And when I started, you see, I was going to give money my own self. I was caught up myself. But when I started doing my homework, I was like, wait a minute. I cannot trace this money. I went to blacklivesmatter.com, click on donate. It takes you to ActBlue. ActBlue is a pass-through service, just like PayPal. It's a pass-through service that processes transactions, takes 3.95% off the top. And then it supposedly sends the money over to the Ties Network Foundation, which is the fiscal sponsor for Black Lives Matter. So I'm like, wait a minute, there's too many steps in this process. And guess what? Last year, the Tides Network was not the fiscal sponsor. They changed ships on July the 2nd. They switched from the Tides, they switched from Thousand Currents as a fiscal sponsor to the Tides Network Foundation. And the Thousand Currents were like, oh, we've been a fiscal sponsor since the beginning, 2013. We had a great partnership, but we're getting out of the fiscal sponsorship business. That's suspicious. Why? Why would you leave now? And if you do your homework about the Tides Network Foundation, they operate very fishy. Something is not right. So now, getting back to this page here, even the chapters are saying, okay, we are going public with our concerns. No more talking, because they said ever since the beginning, there's been a problem. So now they're going public. So they're saying, in the spirit of transparency, accountability, and responsibility to our community, we believe public accountability has become necessary. As a contribution to our collective liberation, we must make clear, number one, Patrice Cullors, as the sole board member of BLM became executive director against the will of most chapters and without their knowledge, without the chapter knowledge. Now, how in the world can Patrice Cullors be the sole board member of a multi-million-dollar nonprofit organization and the executive director? One person has all the power, all of the decision-making capacity. Number two, the newly announced formation, BLM Grassroots, which Patrice Cullors created without any input from anybody, does not have the support of and was created without consultation, with the vast majority of chapters. That's what happens when you don't have governance. Number three, the formation of BLM Grassroots effectively separated the majority of chapters from BLMGN without their consent and interrupted the active process of accountability that was being established by those chapters. So pretty much they said, okay, you're gone, you're suspended, you're dismissed, we don't need you anymore. And number four, in our experience, chapter organizers have been consistently prevented from establishing financial transparency, collective decision-making, or collaboration on political analysis and vision within BLMGN. How can anyone prevent you from establishing financial transparency? I'm not buying that one. And I've studied, like I said, I think up to 25 chapters, and there is no financial transparency at all. You can look back at the videos. I walk you through the websites, through their websites, to show you what I see when I do my research. Number five, for years, there has been inquiry regarding the financial operations of BLMGN and no acceptable process of either public or internal transparency about the unknown millions of dollars donated to BLMGN, which has certainly increased during this time of pandemic and rebellion. This has been going on for years. Where is the money? Number six, to the best of our knowledge, most chapters have received little to no financial support from BLMGN since the launch in 2013. It was only in the last few months that selected chapters appear to have been invited to apply for a $500,000 grant created with resources generated because of the organizing labor of chapters. This is not the equity and financial accountability we deserve. And I do agree with that. Without the chapters, without the thousands of volunteers, without the thousands of just concerned citizens marching every day for weeks in the hot boiling sun with masks last year, there would be no money. There would be not as much money, not millions. And I do remember seeing on the website that they were accepting applications from chapters to get $500,000. I think they were going to grant 10. And from reading number 6 here, it doesn't look like they granted any money. That was just something just to push people back because they started receiving complaints and questions from celebrities like Glenn Beck and even Bishop T.D. Jakes said some things about Black Lives Matter, that they need to really put purpose to the programs and have long-standing changes. I'm paraphrasing what he said. So people are starting to become suspicious. So they came up with this, oh, we're going to give $500,000 grants. I think it was to 10 eligible chapters. But reading number 6, I don't think that ever happened. Because you know what? If it happened, don't you think they would brag about it on their website? Don't you think they would highlight the chapters that got the money? Furthermore, don't you think the chapters would say, hey, Black Lives Matter gave us $500,000? I haven't seen it. Finally, the statement says, we remain committed to collectively building an organization of BLM chapters that is democratic, accountable, and functions in a way that is aligned with our ideological values and commitment to liberation. We will move forward with transparency and expound on our collective efforts to seek transparency and organizational unity in a fuller statement in the near future. As we collectively determine next steps, we encourage our supporters to donate directly to chapters. Don't go to blacklivesmatter.com because that's the site for the Global Black Lives Matter. I'm sorry, that's the site for the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation. The blacklivesmatter.com website is the website for the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation, which is supposed to be the centralized hierarchy, head of the hierarchy, run by Patrice Coolers and governed by Patrice Coolers. So they're saying if you want to support them, give money directly to the chapters who represent the front line of Black Lives Matter. You know, personally, I think Black Lives Matter is doomed. I just don't see any recovery because the reputation is horrendous. I wouldn't give one penny to any Black Lives Matter chapter because from what I've seen and what I've researched, none of them are organized with effective leadership, contact information, ways to find out about their finances. I wouldn't give a penny to any of them. That's just me personally. And here are the people who signed off. I mean, the chapters that signed off. You got Black Lives Matter Philly, um, Black Lives Matter DC, Black Lives Matter Chicago, Black Lives Matter Vancouver, San Diego, New Jersey, Oklahoma, Hudson Valley, and 5280. 5280 is Revolt. Unless they hmm, unless they reinstated their status, they were revoked last year. Philly, DC, Chicago, Vancouver. I've done research on all of them, and you can check the my YouTube channel and just look for them because they're there. But anyway, these are the chapters that sounded off about the mutiny. They have defected from the corporate chapter, the headquarters chapter, and it says an invitation to connect. We understand that these issues are not new and that some chapters left were not acknowledged or pushed out of the network with the community of chapters because of them. Hmm. So they're just inviting chapters to connect with them, chapters at blacklivesmatterstatement.com, and inquiries. You have a media contact for press inquiries. So I'm wrapping it up now. Um, like I said, I've been talking about this for several months now, since June 2020. And it makes me sad to know that we could have had a major shift in politics and great things that happen in the Black community. But what worries me now is this year and coming years when people come and say, okay, where is the money that I gave y'all? What happened to the money that I gave you? I don't see any changes in the Black community. I don't see anything happening in the Black community. What's going on? That's my fear. Because when credible grassroots organizations that support the Black community ask for money, people are going to be skeptical about where the money is going, quite naturally. When you see millions of dollars wasted or gone someplace nobody can track, your credibility is done. And unfortunately, people generalize cultures. We know that. And when the word gets out about all of this money missing, because I believe major news outlets are going to have to talk about this because they gave these three founders platforms to promote their books, to promote their other ventures on the backs of Black Lives Matter. And two of them are not even affiliated with the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation anymore, anyway. But they still appear on these national networks. I know Gayle King has talked to him several times, promoting their books and all kinds of stuff. So they're going to have to backtrack because now, when the word comes out that you've been bamboozled, major news networks, you're going to have to come out and make a statement. And that's when all of the chips are going to fall. And unfortunately, grassroots organizations are going to suffer for it. And it's going to be much more difficult to get funding than ever before. I'm Susan Woods. Thank you so much for listening. And thank you very much for your support. Those of you who reach out to me on my YouTube channel to support what I'm doing and to encourage me, I thank you so much for that. I really do. Have a good day.